Hello, and welcome back to Soft Girl Strong Mind, where I share how I left survival mode and built emotional safety, self trust, and capacity for more. Okay, so last episode, I talked about how our thought patterns are like highways and that our brain built these highways in the easiest, most familiar route, not because they're true, but because they're safe. So that obviously begs the question like, when and how did we build these highways, these pattern of thoughts, and actually most of the thoughts that we have aren't even ours. And listen, this is not to blame our parents. You have to remember they were surviving too. But growing up around certain beliefs for a really long time, those beliefs start sounding like facts to us. To give you the perfect example, and I know a lot of people of color can relate to this, but one of the biggest conditionings I grew around had to do with money. See, growing up, I kept hearing how everything was expensive, and things probably were expensive, but even at discount stores, my parents would somehow find a way to complain about the price. And without even realizing, I started picking those things up because as I got older, I was also repeating things like everything is so expensive, rent is draining, even though at the time I was working a really good job, I was making really good money, and rent was only about 30% of my monthly income, which is very, very good means to live by. But somehow I would still complain about money because that is just a language I learned growing up. This is exactly how highways are formed. And when we try to go off these highways, it feels very unsafe. Not because we're doing something wrong, but we're doing something unfamiliar. For example, even if I could afford something, my body physically didn't feel safe enjoying it. If I bought something nice for myself, for example, I would feel excited for a quick second and then I would immediately start feeling guilty. I would start regretting it and I have to start justifying why I bought myself that thing in the first place. And the worst thing was when my parents would ask me how much were those new shoes or that new top that I'm wearing, and I would have to downplay it so much, almost like if I was apologizing for buying something nice. So it didn't just become this external belief about money, it became this internal experience of unsafety around money. And this doesn't mean my parents were bad or controlling. This just means I grew up watching people who were trying to survive. So money was something you worried about, not enjoyed. And this is exactly how mindsets are formed, not because we sat down and chose them, but because certain thoughts were repeated in an environment where survival mattered. And this goes for everything: money, confidence, spirituality, self esteem, capacity. They are all highways that become familiar, automatic, and unquestioned. But the good thing is that if a thought was learned, it could be unlearned, not with forced positivity, but we could start asking, is this really my belief or did I inherit this belief? So you don't have to change anything yet, but you could start noticing what thoughts feel automatic, what beliefs feel like facts, and where might these have come from? Because the first step out of survival mode is awareness. So those are the few things you can start thinking about this week and applying to your life. And I'll see you guys next week.